The unkillable dark web doll. There's a place on the internet that you're not supposed to visit, the dark web. It's where you can find anything and everything. When I found that doll on one of those forbidden pages, I didn't think twice. But I should have, because that doll is still with me, no matter what I do. And I can't escape it. It all started when I was browsing one night, just looking for something unusual to add to my collection of oddities. I'd always been intrigued by creepy dolls, those porcelain faces, frozen in time, but they were always so expensive. So, when I came across a dark web listing for one, well, I thought it was too good to be true. The listing promised a vintage doll in perfect condition at an unbeatable price. No one else was bidding on it, so I snatched it up quickly. The listing didn't have much information, just an eerie description. A doll with a soul. Once it's yours forever. I should have known something was wrong, but I didn't. A few days later, the package arrived, wrapped in black plastic with no return address. Inside, the doll was exactly as described, too perfect. Its glassy eyes stared up at me, frozen in a blank expression. But something about it felt wrong. The first night I placed it on my shelf, everything seemed fine. I set it there, along with the other oddities I'd collected over the years. But when I went to bed, something was off. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking I heard soft whispers, like a child's giggle, coming from the living room. I told myself it was nothing. But then I noticed that the next morning its position had changed. The doll had moved, just slightly. Its head had turned to face the window. I shook it off. It must have been the wind, right? Or maybe I just placed it wrong. The days went by, and the changes became more pronounced. Every time I left the room, I'd return to find the doll in a different position, sometimes closer to the edge of the shelf. Other times, it seemed to be staring at me. It was almost as if it was watching me. It wasn't until the first night I heard the whispers again that I realized something was wrong. But this time, they weren't whispers. The doll started speaking. Not words exactly, but I could hear its voice in my head. The same childlike giggle, but now louder, more insistent. And then I saw it. Its eyes moved. They blinked. At first I thought it was a trick of the light. But no, when I looked away and then back again, they were moving. I didn't know what to do. I tried to leave the house, but the doll kept showing up in my path. I'd leave it on the shelf, go into the kitchen, and there it was, sitting on the counter, staring at me. I locked it away in the closet, but the next morning it was on my bed. I began to feel the doll was always with me, even when I couldn't see it. The whispers grew louder at night, and sometimes I'd wake up to find its little hands pressed against the window, as if it was trying to get inside. And it wasn't just the doll. Strange things began to happen around the house, flickering lights, doors that wouldn't stay closed, the distinct sound of tiny footsteps following me wherever I went. I called a friend over, hoping they could help me make sense of it. But when they walked into the room, they froze. "Is that the doll?" they asked, voice trembling. I nodded, too terrified to speak, but it was more than just fear. The doll had changed. Its face now seemed angry. Its eyes glowed a faint red, and its lips, once frozen in a smile, were now twisted into a mocking grin. That night, the worst happened. I tried to burn it. I thought that maybe fire would put an end to it all. But when I threw it into the flames, the doll only smirked, unaffected. The fire burned around it, but it didn't touch the doll. It never even made a sound. I was losing my mind. I tried everything to get rid of it. I buried it in the backyard, hoping it would be gone forever. But the next day it was back on my shelf, its eyes locked on mine. "I'm never leaving," the doll whispered. That night, I locked every door and window. I barricaded myself in my room. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the feeling that the doll was with me. I heard the tiny footsteps again, but this time, they were closer. They were coming from inside the room. I didn't dare look. I couldn't. The door creaked open. I held my breath, waiting for the worst. Then I felt its cold fingers touching my shoulder. I never saw it coming. One moment, I was trapped in the corner, the doll in front of me. The next, everything went black. I woke up hours later with no memory of what had happened. The doll was gone. But I knew it wasn't over. I can feel its eyes on me even now. And every time I look in the mirror, I see it in the reflection just behind me. If you're ever tempted to buy something from the dark web, just know that some things aren't meant to come back. If you want to hear more chilling tales like this, head over to my other videos where I share real-life horror stories from the dark web that will keep you up at night. Stay safe out there. You never know what you might bring home.